The Goons are back at it again on Crunch Time. Mad Max and Kruck are live right now.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into episode 47, if I believe correctly.
I believe so. That's correct, Kruck.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a great show today. It's Max and I. Max, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Kruck. You know, it's a nice day out today, and hey, I can't wait to start getting into the topics. As you probably know, I've already started a new podcast myself called Down to the Minute, and now I'm doing 2 podcasts at once, so it's kind of very cool to kind of do that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you're only called the Goons on one of them, though, as you heard Ed, one of the guys I work with at the radio station, filmed that intro for us, or recorded it more like, calling us the Goons. How do you feel about that one, Max?
Whatever name that they like to call us, Kruck, is whatever they like to call us. I'm just glad we're getting like an intro and like an outro for us to have for the show. It's kind of cool how we've kind of evolved with this, right? If you don't remember, we started just with headsets.
Yeah.
With just headset mics that we had in a conference room, and now we're leading into more, just being audio only now and doing stuff. So it's kind of been very cool to see like the evolution of our podcast go for sure.
For sure. Well, first thing up on slate is going to be the XFL, and Max, bring us up to speed on the XFL.
Yeah, so last weekend, the St. Louis Battlehawks started off winning on Thursday night, winning 20-18 over the Seattle Sea Dragons, and then DC Defenders won as well. They won 18-6 over Las Vegas in kind of a ugly, rainy game, Kruck, for sure. And then the San Antonio Brahmas beat the Guardians 30-12. And then the Houston Roughnecks, which is a team I said last week I think is the best team out of all these 8 teams in the XFL, won 23-14 over the Arlington Renegades. So, I mean, we talked about it last week, all the rules that we had, right, that makes the game very cool for the show. And also, I guess I enjoy just how these guys are still competing at this level, and you're seeing that happen. And the Roughnecks, they're a team that's done a very good job in the defensive end. Showed it again against the Arlington Renegades. And St. Louis, another team, battled back again. They did it last week against the Brahmas in the last 2 minutes. They found a way to win again towards the end against Seattle. So, to me, though, the best team, and we'll get to this as the XFL's got 10 weeks to the season, to me, looking at is the DC Defenders, though. I like how their team is. They got 2 quarterbacks, Jordan Ta'amu and then De'Aaron King. Now, probably those 2 names sound familiar to you. De'Aaron King was an outstanding quarterback coming out of, the University of Houston. And that was something you want to have for this team as well. So I think if you look at it, DC Defenders are going to be the team to watch in the XFL for sure, Kruck.
No, yeah, absolutely. And, I like the DC Defenders as well. But, I mean, the Houston Roughnecks, you talked about it, they're 2-0 right now. So are the Defenders. St. Louis Battlehawks, they're 2-0, but they only have a 5-point winning differential, which means they've only won both of their games by a combined 5 points. A team that, is only 500, but they have a really good differential is the San Antonio Brahmas. Right now they're, plus 15 in the differential, which means, honestly, they might have lost a close game, but they absolutely had a blowout before. So, if you haven't watched the XFL, you definitely should check it out. They have some very interesting things going on instead of a traditional, PAT
accessibility shortcuts. Use the tab key to navigate and
3, 2, 1. Instead of just like a normal, PAT, they have. You can line up and go from the 5, the 10, and the 15, I do believe, are the markers.
At the 5 will mean just 1 point. At the 10 will be 2 points, and the 3-point one will be at the 15-yard one. So that's obviously very cool instead of an extra point, right? I think I think football should kind of look into that a little bit. Because granted, listen, we love the kickers, right? They get points. They want to be there, do the job. But why not get some more offense in the game? And that shows something interesting to watch. And I've always argued with that. I mean, we talked about it with whether it's all-star games, everything else, we want more offense than more defense. Well, that's the way right here to do it, right? Getting more offense, having those 3-point attempt opportunities, 2 points and 1 point. So, like what the XFL is doing, I think they're going to have, probably good success here. And right now, DC and Houston are my favorite teams. But as we go on, we'll probably see a lot more drama happening in the XFL.
Absolutely. Let's shift gears into college NCAA bracketology. Were we starting with the men's or the women's?
Kruck, we're going to start at the men's side. And again, looking like it's still the number 1 seeds are there. Houston's still number 1 right now. Alabama is still there. We talked about a couple shows ago, right? Is Alabama a for real team? And we still don't know until we're sure once they get into the SEC tournament. But right now, Brandon Miller and how Alabama is playing is still top-notch. Granted, they had a scare a couple days ago against Arkansas. Could have lost at home. but they found a way to get it done. So I think Alabama is still going to be relevant looking into the South region right now, is where, according to ESPN, they got them at in Louisville, which will be held. Right now, Purdue is still number 1 seed in the East at the moment, but Purdue has been on and off right now. They've been winning games, they've been losing games. They have not been the team since back in January. Since February, they have lost 5 games out of that stretch. And the Big Ten, that's how the Big Ten is, but if Purdue wants to still get that number 1 seed, they got to do well in the Big Ten tournament, in my opinion. And Kansas right now is still looking very good. I mean, Kansas is still being the top team right now in the Big 12, which right now the Big 12, according to this, actually has the second most teams according to this bracketology at 8 teams. But to me, I think the Big 12 is more competitive than the Big 10 this year, men's basketball. I say that because you look at these teams. Kansas State didn't really look like that much this season. They have started to evolve. Iowa State, another team, they're kind of on and off the entire year. They're right there as well to do another run too. So I like how the Big 12 is kind of set up for, tournament play and everything else. And it's going to be interesting to watch that one in Kansas City, just up the road here where the Big 12 tournament will be played. I think will be something to watch as well. So there's a lot of interesting teams. Kruck, I guess looking more at the bracket, what are you looking at?
Man, I'm looking at which number 1 seed I don't think is going to make the Final Four. And, these experts do a great job year in, year out predicting and, placing the true number 1 seeds in those positions. But honestly, there are 2 number 1 seeds that I don't see making it out of their quadrants, and it is Purdue. You mentioned they're on and off. If they catch an off game and there's a decent team coming up the reins, I don't think it's going to be a 16 seed that drops them. I don't think it'll be that, but it might be a 3, a 4, or a 5, or pardon me, a 3, 4, or 2 seed. The 2 seed being Kansas State, the 4 seed being Virginia, and the 3 seed being Tennessee. All of those teams have a chance to, and I can't even count out the 5 seed in Creighton. Creighton's doing a good job this year. I see them bumping up a little bit more depending upon how the people above them win and lose. I see them bumping up as well. Another team that I don't see really getting out of their quadrant is going to be Alabama. I think Alabama is going to end up losing to either Arizona in the Elite Eight, Baylor in the Elite Eight, or maybe even Miami in the Sweet 16. I think Alabama is an unproven, untested team, and I don't think that there is enough team around Brandon Miller to support him. You can do all that you can as a single star player, but you still need role players. That has been proven over and over again.
And if you look at all these teams, right, I think Houston, Purdue, and Kansas at least have other players around them, like you said. Purdue has Zach Edey and they have Brandon Smith, 2 great players on their team. Kansas has got Jalen Wilson, and they got some other players as well. Can't think of them on the top of my head at the moment. And then Houston's got Marcus Sasser. That has still been that type of player as well for Houston. And it's funny is that I just looked at this before. The Final Four will be held in Houston this year. So if Houston can find a way to get to that advantage, Crook, that'll be a big home field advantage for them if that happens for them.
Oh, yeah,
so that's probably a big incentive for them to try to get that number 1 seed and keep playing for that as well. And I mean, I agree with you looking at least that if this stands that Alabama B's the number 1 seed in the South region, Arizona, if that stands as well being the 2 seed, would probably be a big threat to them because I like how Arizona is set up from top to bottom. They got players that are big with Courtney Ramey. They got another guy as well, Tubelis, I believe, that is a very good, skilled big man that can make plays. Now, granted, they lost a heartbreaker to Arizona State over the weekend with a game winner. Same as Miami. They lost to Florida State, which was 9-20 this year. Not a great team. But, again, those happen where you win in last-second plays. One team that granted, they got him right now at the 5 slot is Indiana. I still think Indiana in the men's side is a team to watch. They've already beat Purdue twice this season. That is the number 1 seed. And it's not just now Tracy Jackson Davis as well. They got this guy named Hood Schifino that scored 35 points against Purdue in the game. So that's another guy to watch for this team for Indiana. I think they're a team to watch even in this tournament. And then one more team before we move to women's side real quick is Marquette. You talked about them earlier in the year. They are starting to move in the right direction. How they are playing, and I think I got some information about Marquette, if I remember correctly. Let me see. I think they had a guy that actually scored about 13.5 points, if I remember looking at my stats here, Krug. And that guy, he can make plays. And they got great skill guys all over the place. And so I think that's going to be a key for Marquette as we go on to this season. How are they going to play as a team? And I just can't wait to see how this plays out because March Madness is going to be March 12th, 2 weeks from now, Kruck. We're going to be excited.
Absolutely, and as you're looking up that guy, I mean, March Madness is always an absolutely brilliant time of the year. Even the play-in tournaments are fun, and it looks like you got him out.
I got him just for Cam Jones. He's got 15.2 points per game. I like how his game is played. He can shoot the three ball really well, and he can really facilitate this team. And they got a couple of other transfers as well from their squad, too, which is very interesting. I believe Tyler Kulak played with Utah for a period of time, went over now to Marquette. And so that's another guy that is being an assist leader for this team. And Marquette, they have a great head coach as well, and that is going to be a key for them going into the tournament. Because the Big East, you always think of Villanova, right, in the men's side. They're not doing so hot this year at all.
No.
And Marquette has taken over that reign, so they're right now slated as a 3 seed in the Midwest, and see where they go as we get towards March Madness, correct?
Absolutely. We're going to flip things over into the women's side, and Max, your team, Stanford, took a hit this weekend, didn't they?
I knew you were going to say something about that, because I saw the score, and I was like, wow, that's going to be a tough one for crunch time coming up this weekend and this week. But Utah now is now 1 seed still in Salt Lake City. Huh? How does that work out? But to me, I was talking still about Utah as the team that is still a sleeper team as well. But I was right about another team as well. Iowa beating Indiana this week as well with Caitlin Clark's game-winning buzzer beater at the buzzer. And I still thought Iowa, again, listen, Caitlin Clark led the team with a lot of points, but how the team played together in that environment was huge. And Indiana, they're still selected as a number 1 seed, but I wouldn't be surprised they fall a couple of slots. Especially looking at now the Big Ten itself, it looks like it's going to come down to Indiana, Iowa, or maybe Ohio State. Maybe Michigan in that sense for the Big Ten in the women's side. So I think those teams are going to be a threat to look at. And your UConn team, Kruck, just talk to them about how do you believe UConn's doing right now?
Dude, I think UConn's actually doing pretty well. I haven't seen any huge alerts, any huge upsets from them, but I mean, it's UConn. Anytime UConn loses a game, whether they're 0-50 or if they're 50-0, anytime they lose a game, it's a big deal because UConn is known for women's basketball. Men's basketball isn't bad, but I mean, they are known for women's basketball. So, honestly, I think UConn's still gonna be the team to beat in this tournament. I'm not sleeping on South Carolina. They are a great team, but they got the best of UConn last year, and I don't think UConn's gonna lose to the same team 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I mean, it's, UConn and South Carolina, they're two of the top, obviously, perennial teams in women's basketball still. And they're going to do very well in the tournament. I mean, granted, UConn did scare me a little bit when they lost to St. John's that one time. That was a scare to me. They had 5 points. And I mentioned last week's show about South Carolina's scare against Ole Miss. And so that, to me, is, granted, they might be looking ahead into tournament play or everything, but you can't take any game for granted. We've seen this in the men's side. We've seen this in the women's side. And we saw that with Stanford, my team, that's still selected as 1 seed. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if they fell down, changing as the rankings go by. So I think still looking at those, Stanford's still going to get a number 1 seed. I believe they're going to find a way to come back together as a team. And they might beat Utah because they'll probably play each other in the Pac-12 championship in the women's side. And they're probably going to be like, hey, we lost them beforehand at their place. We want to beat them this time. So I still have belief in Stanford and Cameron Brink and their head coach as well to get it done, correct?
So which one of these 1 seeds do you not think is going to make it into the Final Four?
At the moment, I'm going to say they put Utah right now at a number 1 seed. I'm going to say Utah. But it's very close because I think Indiana, listen, granted they lost to Iowa and that's a great team, but I still think Indiana has great role players around. You talked about it in the men's side, right? Indiana on the women's side has great players that can shoot. They got, I believe, 3 or 4 players that are over double digits in scoring, which is huge for a team to get going with. And I still think South Carolina is a valuable team because we know about South Carolina. Leah Boston can play that role.
Yeah.
Stanford, again, me and Stanford. I think they're going to be a valuable team just how they play. And Utah, to me, listen, granted, this happens all the time in basketball. We mentioned that you can have a great game and then you can have a bad game. But I believe Utah is going to stumble looking at this side. I like this Virginia Tech team in the LSU still in the women's side in that one. Granted, we talked about LSU trying to be stumbling a little bit too, just like earlier in the show. So I think that's going to be a team to watch to probably beat up Utah or maybe Ohio State, how they play. I really like how, granted, that doesn't mean I'm just an Ohio State fan. I actually just like how they score. Taylor Mikesell can shoot the ball like crazy, and they got a great player as well in Kayla, I believe, Feeney as well. She can do a great job passing the ball for Ohio State. So I believe they can beat up Utah if this stands at the moment to be lose as a number 1 seed.
I mean, it was going to pain me to say it, so I'm glad you said it first. I think Ohio State is going to put up a good fight against LSU. I think that one could go just about either way. But looking at the 4 seed Texas, if Texas makes it all the way to the Sweet 16, I can see them toppling Utah. I think Texas is a fundamentally sound team. I think they do a great job attacking boards, getting the assists, getting points. They're not going to be super flashy. They're not going to be in your face. They're going to do, blue collar work, right? That's what they excel at, and that's what they do well. So I think Texas might beat Utah, and if Texas does beat Utah, I can see it either being, Texas or LSU coming out of the Seattle division, Seattle 4.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to watch. I think probably the toughest division is that Seattle 4 with all the teams that are there. I think probably the weakest one, if you had to tell me out of all the divisions, is probably the Greenville one with South Carolina. You just look at the teams. I mean, Louisville's been on and off the entire year. Iowa, again, I still like Iowa as a team, but I think they'll probably find a way to – I think Iowa can beat Virginia Tech in the women's side. I could possibly see South Carolina play Iowa, but South Carolina's just that powerful right now. They're just that team, so guess we'll see how it goes, Kruck.
Absolutely. Moving forward into our first ever MLS kickoff. Major League Soccer has started, and we are literally 1 game into it, so there's not a whole lot that we have to talk about. But, Max, we haven't talked about MLS before on the show. What are some things that the fans and our listeners should know of just right away?
Well, I mean, MLS has got, they have still teams that are all around. The top teams that are there, the Philadelphia Union in the East Side, they did a good job last year. I believe they went to the championship game last year, I believe. And so they're a valuable team in the East Division. So I'll just explain real quick how it is. There's a West Side and an East Side. So there's about a mixture of, I believe it's equal amount of teams on the East Side and an equal amount of teams on the West Side. And so the kind of the big teams to look on the East Side of the bracket is, again, like I mentioned, the Philadelphia Union. I would still say DC United is still a powerful team to watch. They've kind of got players that can play all around. Now my Columbus Crew, fortunately, they've been on and off. They were good one year, and then they've been horrible another year, so obviously that's tough. But now looking at, there is a new team, though, in the MLS, so there is something new. The St. Louis City SC is now in the West Division. So now if you're from St. Louis, you want to see an MLS team, you got the Battlehawks now, and you got St. Louis MLS team. So that is, I guess, a new change looking at it in the West Side. I mean, again, LAFC, LA Galaxy, both LA teams are powerful, right? They obviously play a great rivalry between each other. That's a great matchup in the MLS side. Right here in Kansas City, right? Sporting Kansas City, they actually play tonight, I believe, because they had a game scheduled for Saturday, and then there was something happening, I believe, so they had to reschedule it back to Monday. So, but we'll see them probably as we go on to next show. We'll see how their record is as we go into next Monday. But they're probably didn't have the season they went last year at all. They were not. Everyone had high expectations for Sporting Kansas City, and then they fell off. They fell off completely and didn't have their players that they wanted to. And I think that's going to be a huge thing under Coach Vermees, I believe that's his name, for the head coach for Sporting KC, that wants to change up the culture in Kansas City. So maybe watch out for them in the West Side. So I guess those are some of the teams I'm looking at, Kruck. You got any more thoughts?
I mean, looking at the teams, it's the first time talking about MLS, so, I have to go in and pick my favorites, right? I have to pick my teams and stick by them. I'm a Chicago man, born and raised, so Chicago Fire Football Club. That's going to be one of my teams coming out of the East. Another team in the East, just looking at it, excuse me, I'm going to go with pick a random team off topic and have some fun with this. You know what? I'm going to go Columbus Crew with you, Max. I like the word crew. I don't know why. I think it's because I rock a crew cut or something, but I'm going to go with Columbus Crew. And then out of the West, I have to do Sporting KC because I'm in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And then a team that a lot of people have started to like bandwagon towards, if you will, is the Football Club Dallas, FC Dallas. And do you know who is the owner of FC Dallas?
I do not. Who is it?
Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, wow.
The actor is the...
I did not know that. Okay.
He's either part owner or
Part
majority owner
Wow.
of the Football Club Dallas. So
I knew it. It makes sense because Texas man himself.
yeah, so I'm cheering for those teams throughout the year. Don't know if they're good. Don't know if they're bad. Next week, if we talk about this, I will have more details. Avila's internet is running incredibly slow, so I don't actually have my stats pulled up in front of me. I'm looking off of Max's computer, so
man.
Talking a little less today, but we're still gonna get there. And what was our last topic we had, Max?
I believe we had MLB, Kruck. We had MLB
MLB
Spring
Spring Training. Spring Training is in full swing. Get it? Pun, swing. And it's been a good one so far. They've introduced the pitch clock, and they've introduced bigger bases, and the bases really aren't making much of a difference, if you will, but the pitch clock is making a huge difference. So the batter has 8 seconds he has 8 seconds to look at the pitcher. If he's not looking at the pitcher within 8 seconds, is an automatic strike. If he is not ready in 15 seconds while the bases are empty, it's an automatic strike. And now for the pitcher, if the pitcher is not on the mound in 8 seconds, it is an automatic ball. If he does not deliver a pitch in 15 seconds, automatic ball. Now, times are different when base runners are on. When the runners are on, it goes to 10 seconds and 20 seconds, but it's trying to speed up the game.
Right.
I looked at the stat line for Kansas City and Seattle. They had a combined 15 runs and 25 hits, and the game only took 2 hours and 23 minutes.
Yeah, that's...
That is incredible. That is a lot of offense
Yeah.
happening in a short period of time. And, I've talked to people constantly, and they're all telling me, they're not moving it towards a more offensive league. They're not pushing more offense, this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, but they are. You may even disagree with me, Max, but they are. They're creating more offense by forcing the batter to be in the box, by forcing the pitcher to pitch quickly.
Yeah.
Because you looked at Nectar Cortez Jr. last year. He was, 4th or 5th in the AL Cy Young, and that's because he didn't have a windup that was the same speed the entire year.
It's right. Pitchers usually want to do, like you said, a certain windup or a certain idea to kind of get their pitch, right? And every time a pitcher goes up to the mound, they don't want to have to worry about, hey, I got to get this pitch right away at this second, or maybe go to another one another second, right? I think looking at it, this is going to make MLB more of a change. It's going to change the culture of MLB. It's going to change for more, like you mentioned, more offensively based. And we kind of also talked about the shift, too, as well. And we had a disagreements with the shift, everything. I thought about is, listen, if you're a player in the shift idea, then if you can find a way to hit it to the other side, that makes you a skilled player. That's why you're in the major leagues and everything.
For sure.
And that's why I believe in that. So, and I think probably that will make more players, even with the shift, like you mentioned, with the pitch clock and everything, how much a batter can be up in the stands. That'll make more of a batter to be more flexible, I think, up there at the plate. Because that'll make them more aware of, okay, now I got time to hit it over to right. Or I'll have more time to hit it over to left because maybe they're not ready and set at the time that the fielders even set. It's not just the pitchers we're thinking about. You got to think about this as the players in the infield and also players in the outfield, how they get set. Now, granted, it's probably not as much as the pitcher, but it's still just 1 second in a baseball game. It could be either an image of a base hit or it could be an image of just a straight out. So, and now, Kruck, that's kind of my thoughts about all the rules. Now, looking at some of the stuff and information and scores, listen, there's still a lot of great teams. Right now, the Mets in spring training are 2-1. Right now, at the moment, they're playing actually the Cardinals right now as we speak, and they're up 4-2. So I guess that's as we're talking, we got baseball going on. The Astros, they team that won it last year, 1-1. Right now, playing against the Marlins at the moment in spring training. So there's a lot of great. We don't know as the teams go by because it is spring training, but. Correct. We look at all these teams. What is your number one team you got to threat in either the NL or the AL?
Well, I am a Milwaukee Brewer fan through and through. It hasn't changed, probably never will. The team that I am afraid of in the NL this year is going to be the Mets. Because I think the Mets are going to, with the addition of an extra pitcher, I think they're going to be just that much better. But, a team that hasn't really, like, jolted out front this year, if you will. They've kind of just been slowly getting better and better and better, is the St. Louis Cardinals. And, I mean, as a Brewer fan, I absolutely hate the Cardinals. I despise them. If I could get rid of that team, I would. But, I mean, the Cardinals have been getting better and better, and Yadier Molina, a lifetime Cardinal, just retired, and they bring in Wilson Contreras. That is about the best swap you can do, because Yadier Molina, even though his efficiency and productivity was not as good as it was when he was old, they still liked him. And now you're bringing in Wilson Contreras, whose productivity and efficiency is, still at peak performance. Mm-hmm. He's going to be a good replacement. You got Nolan Arenado at third, Paul Goldschmidt at first. You got Tommy Edman, I believe, is at second. You got, an outfielder loaded with guys whose names are slipping me at the moment. I know Harrison Bader got traded to the Yankees, so he's not there anymore, but I think Paul DeYoung might still be playing shortstop a couple times a week.
Still with the Cardinals at the moment, yep.
So, I mean, honestly, the Cardinals right now, the weakest part of their game is going to be pitching. If they can get their pitching on a roll, if they can get their pitching down perfectly, I think the Cardinals are going to be a team to fear out of the NL. Now, the AL side of things, this is going to be a hot take, but, I mean, it could go either way. I think the Texas Rangers might actually be able to put things together this year.
Okay.
Jacob deGrom, you got Corey Seager, I believe, is there. No, not Corey Seager. Who is their second baseman is Marcus Semien. Who is their shortstop? Is it Corey Seager?
I think so.
I think it's Corey Seager. They got Aroldis Garcia out in center field. I believe they still have Matt Lowe playing first base unless he got traded somewhere. Honestly, I think the Texas Rangers are really going to be a good team, but their pitching staff is what's going to be the most dangerous, because they got Jacob deGrom, who is going to be amazing. I mean, looking at some of their other pitchers, like they are good. They are a good team. They got Joe Barlow. They got Brock Berkey. I mean, Jacob deGrom, obviously. Nathan Eovaldi.
Yeah.
He is good. And then a guy who, like, people have really been sleeping on is Jack Leader, the son of great closer for the Blue Jays, Al Leader. Jack Leader is going to be good. Yeah, and it is Corey Seager. So, I mean, it's just a great – it has the potential to be a great team. That is what I'm going for, and I want to see him succeed. Who are your teams out of the NL and AL, Max?
I mean, I kind of like what you said. I didn't think about Texas Rangers at the moment, but now I'm thinking about it. That actually looks like a good team. I'm actually looking at their roster right now. Jacob deGrom, I didn't even remember that he went to the Rangers at the moment. And then when he went to the Rangers, he's a valid pitcher. He's a valid pitcher. He can play very well. Nathan Eovaldi, we know about him. He's a great starting pitcher as well. I also like Jake Arduzzi as well, another starting pitcher. I think he was at the Rays for a period of time, if I remember correctly. He's another not bad pitcher for their team.
Braves.
Actually, with the Braves, pardon me. So that's another player. So we're still figuring out all the names and everything as we go. But looking at it, though, again, Corey Seager, again, a big at-bat. Marcus Semien as well is another guy I liked. Used to play for the Athletics.
Yes.
Oakland Athletics for a period of time. And he was a valid player, even though the Athletics have not been the team they want to be.
Oh, no. No.
I mean, they used to be a valid team right outside the West, and now they're not there anymore. I mean, in the NL, I still, listen, the Padres and Dodgers are still teams I like. And I talked about this actually in my podcast. I think with the Padres now getting Fernando Tatis, what they want, right? And now we're just going to talk about this, I guess, as well, since I just mentioned the Padres. They just signed now Manny Machado now to an 11-year, $340 million extension. And so they're right now trying to build for, these are their two superstars. They need to produce. And when they're both on the field, I think the Padres are a real threat to anyone in the NL. Even the Dodgers, a team that's been controlling the NL West for a period of time. I think Padres now could beat the Los Angeles Dodgers in that division. I really do. And it's because you have those type of bats, and the pitchers are not bad for the Padres either. They got some pretty good pitchers on their team. I believe
Darvish, Blake Snell.
there. Blake Snell is there. And, Joe Musgrove.
He's still there.
Joe Musgrove there. He had I believe a no-hitter there one time, right?
They have Josh Hader coming out of the pen.
So I like how they're built, and they did a good job getting players, especially when they had, free agency and the trade deadline and everything. They were big spenders in the trade deadline. So to me, I like San Diego Padres in the NL, and then in the AL, I agree with you. I think Texas Rangers are a team that people probably would expect to be well, but I think will do well this season.
All right, and that's going to wrap up Crunch Time this week. We were going to do a fun little topic at the end, but the internet not really participating with us, so we're going to sign off. Yeah, thank you all for listening. And fun tip of the week, if you are thinking about getting a new shower head, remember to get one that actually produces water. They make shower heads that don't produce water. You don't want one of those. We'll see you guys later.
Want to stay up to date on all Crunch Time episodes? Make sure to subscribe and follow on Spotify Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.